Now, in today's video, we're going to take a look at the best Gabriel replacements. Of course, with the Arsenal defender potentially being out for a few game weeks, I think it's very important to know which players you should be looking to bring in for this upcoming game week. And in today's video, I am giving you a very detailed breakdown of my favorite picks. Now, of course, before we dive into today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as we're trying to hit 25,000 subscribers over on the FPL Tom YouTube channel. And it'd be absolutely amazing, of course, if we could achieve that goal. First up then, let's talk about the most popular and probably, I would say, the move that a lot of FPL managers are going to make very, very quickly this week. It is going to be replacing Gabriel for Virgil van Dijk. As you can see coming up, the Liverpool fixtures are just great. They're one of the best sides for projected goals as well on the 11-5 model, on the Solio projected clean sheet model as well, on the bookmakers models as well for the next few weeks. They are just, with these fixtures coming up, really fancy to keep a lot of clean sheets. Now, Liverpool so far this season have struggled defensively. They're kind of, towards kind of mid-table, bottom half in terms of expected goals conceded. However, they do have a real nice set of fixtures coming up here, and you do feel like they might potentially be able to kind of, navigate that, pick up some better numbers over the next few weeks, and of course, look to pick up quite a few clean sheets. Like I said, there's a lot of great fixtures in here for Liverpool, and their standout defender that a lot of people are, of course, going to be looking at is Virgil van Dijk. As you can see, he has picked up 12 points so far this season from those defensive contributions, something that we all like to see with our defenders. A lot of people are saying, he might as well, potentially score some goals from set pieces. That very well could be the case. He had one ruled out in the Champions League already earlier this season. However, that isn't something I would probably expect from Virgil van Dijk, in my personal opinion. I just think, for me, Liverpool aren't a side that are looking to overly create from set pieces. They're actually one of the worst sides for expected goals from set play so far this year. They haven't really taken, of course, into consideration what everybody else is doing in the Premier League. So I wouldn't say kind of, expect any sort of goals from Van Dijk, but I know now saying that he's definitely going to go and grab himself a goal against Nottingham Forest. But like I said, I think he's going to be the very popular pick. He's probably going to be the pick I'm going to go for as well, if, of course, Gabriel is confirmed out for a extended period of time. I would be looking, the next few fixtures. There's just some great ones in there. He's a 90-minute man. I've not got to worry about rotation. He's also got, a pretty stellar injury record as well. He's not a player that usually spends extended periods of times out. So I think he could just be, a nice set and forget for the next few weeks. I've not got to worry about a future transfer with him. I can just stick with him for the next few weeks. He can hit defensive contributions. There's some great fixtures coming up. And maybe, like I said, potentially get himself a goal or an assist from a set piece, because he is a real big aerial monster. I am just surprised Liverpool don't use him more often. Another argument I've seen over on social media is, well, is it worth just maybe looking at another Arsenal defender? And I think that's also a great point. I did a little bit of research for the FPL Cartel Discord members over on that. If you want to go and check it out, I will talk about it in a bit more, but in more detail, sorry. But if you want to go and check it out, there is a link in the description. And I said, basically, Arsenal's defensive numbers last year weren't really affected with the Gabriel injury. He missed 10 games last year, kept 4 clean sheets, and they only conceded 10 goals in those 10 games. So still pretty very good record, to be honest, for Arsenal to be having during that period. So maybe it's not going to be that big an impact, and you could just definitely just select another Arsenal defender. I put Gabriel obviously on this list as well, so you can compare him to his kind of, other Arsenal defenders that you might want to potentially be looking at. I think the big stat for me that is the kind of big standout is those defensive contributions. He is the only player you can see right here that is just winning them. However, that might potentially change with his injury. We might see potentially Mosquera, or of course Saliba potentially become the guy that now has to go, be a little bit more attacking, be a little bit more aggressive, should I say, and pick up those defensive contributions, be the first to the ball, win the tackles, win the presses, all that good stuff. And I think probably Saliba for me over this kind of, winter period where there are a lot of games with Champions League, Carabao Cup, Premier League midweek rounds, does feel like he could probably just be that easy pickup. And obviously if you want to continue with the Arsenal defense, because again, they've still got some great projections. I imagine with the Gabriel injury, it might drop a little bit. However, I'm still expecting the numbers to be absolutely fantastic over this time period. And like I said, even with his injury last season, didn't affect them too much. A lot of the games as well, they had quite a few difficult games, Liverpool, Newcastle during that run as well. So I still would be expecting them to keep a decent amount of clean sheets over this period. And a man that I would probably say is definitely going to play most of the games, probably all of the Premier League games up until obviously Gabriel is back, will be William Saliba. So at 6 million, he feels like a pretty easy kind of shift towards. I think for your more attacking options, obviously Calafiori, there were rumours that he picked up a knock over the international break. Looks like he's going to be completely fine. So wouldn't worry about that one too much. However, like I said, I think these guys might see a bit more rotation. There's just a hell of a lot of games coming up. So your Timbers, your Calafioris, even your Mosquera, they've got the other defender as well that can also slide in, Lewis Skelly. They've got plenty of other players that probably will rotate around Saliba, is how I'm imagining Arsenal's kind of December to look at. He feels like the one that will probably kind of just steady the ship across this period, and probably for me would be the one that I would select with the most secure minutes. Everybody else, yes, the minutes so far in the Premier League have been good. However, I do worry longer term that during this more kind of, festive period where we all know there's lots of games coming midweeks every single week, I do feel like the other guys might maybe see some more reduced minutes or potentially some rotation during that period. So for me, my favourite pick would be Saliba. I hope maybe his defensive contributions could potentially go up. You are pretty much just banking on clean sheets with him, though. There isn't really much in terms of his XGI. Of course, as well, defensive contributions aren't really there either. So it is just purely going to be clean sheets. So if I was to pick anybody, either Saliba or Van Dijk, I probably actually would lead a little bit more towards Van Dijk. I feel like you've got the defensive contributions a little bit more nailed, a little bit more settled. And I think as well, that for me would probably edge it a little bit more kind of avenue to points, potential route there. So that's probably where I would go in terms of my pickups. But I still think, investing into that Arsenal defense still could be a very worthwhile strategy. It is just making sure that you get the right defender that doesn't have any risk of those potential benchings or early substitutions over the busy festive period. Now, like I said, I did allude to the FPL Cartel, and you might be asking yourself, well, what is the FPL Cartel? It is an exclusive members-only Discord podcast and of course competitions that has been set up by myself and Golden Goal Fantasy Football. If you want to come and check it out, I will leave a link in the description. We've currently got a 30-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Get yourself in there. Link in the description. And completing today's video is going to be the best of the rest. Pretty much I've just put all the defenders that I would be looking at, whether I own them, whether I don't own them, over this kind of period. If, of course, maybe I've already got Van Dijk, or, I just want to look at potentially a different club. These are all the players that I would personally be considering for myself. Again, you've got all the same metrics here: defensive contributions per start, their points total, their goal involvement. This is, of course, sorted by XGI non-penalty, and of course, their points per start as well. There are a lot of players in here. I'm probably just going to highlight the ones that I would personally be considering, and maybe some that could potentially be traps if, of course, you are thinking about potentially going for them as well. So let's start off first with Daniel Munoz. The next few fixtures for Crystal Palace, all the way up until around game week 16, are very, very investable. So if you are looking for a short-term attacking fun pick, I think Daniel Munoz could be that guy at 5.7. He's also can hit defensive contributions, as you can see here. He's got the best XGI non-penalty as well. He's also got himself free goal involvement so far this season. So like I said, if you are looking for a short-term fun pick, I definitely think Daniel Munoz could be that man. Reece James, if you are thinking about potentially going for him, I would argue probably avoid. We've already seen mass rotation within that Chelsea lineup, and this probably goes for all Chelsea defenders, in my personal opinion. Who else have we got on this list? We've got Chalobah as well on this list. Cucurella, all of these guys for me would be very, very easy avoids over the next few weeks, purely because we've already seen Chelsea's rotation. It just happens. There's a lot of it. They've got a lot of players. They've got a lot of games coming up as well. They've got Burnley in the week. They've got Barcelona, then Arsenal. Then, of course, they head into the midweek game week 14 FPL round. Then you have another Premier League game. Then you have another Champions League game. There is a lot of games there. There's going to be a lot of rotation. So for me personally, I probably would stay clear of any Chelsea players during this period. There's going to probably be, like I said, quite a bit of rotation. So likes of James, Chalobah, Cucurella, again, probably not really going to be pickups. Same goes with Van de Ven as well. There's some real difficult fixtures coming up for Spurs. They've actually not been a great side for, of course, clean sheets so far. Expected goals conceded as well have been pretty miserable so far for them. A lot of his bulk of his scoring, of course, has come from that mega 23-point haul, and of course the other game where he scored with a double-digit haul earlier in the season as well. Like I said, the fixtures just aren't really there for Spurs. Again, they've got a hell of a lot of games coming up, so Van de Ven will be absolutely worked into the ground. He's also not got, I would say, repeatable actions within his game. So as you can see, only 10% of his starts so far this season have led to a defensive contribution points. So for me, it doesn't seem like the goals are going to be, really predictable or a kind of, repeatable outcome. And I think for that reason, probably would avoid Van de Ven. Mark Gahey, if he's fit and available, again, very similar to Munoz, could just be decent for the next few weeks. Palace, again, they'll have a hell of a lot of fixtures coming up. They've also got a Carabao Cup game thrown in there as well a little bit later. Their fixtures take a real big nosedive as well. I think we've also got Lacroix and Richards as well. So these guys for the next few definitely could be good. However, their fixtures do take a real big swing around FPL game week 16. And it does get a little bit frightening in terms of the amount of fixtures they've got as well during that period. So I probably would say for short-term punts, maybe if you've got a wild card, or of course, are just going to use the AFCON transfers to maybe get rid of a pick like a Munoz, or potentially a Richards, Lacroix, Gahey, then of course they could be decent pickups, but yeah, like I said, probably for me, not worth going for. Matty Cash and Digne as well are two options that people, of course, have been speaking to me about as well. Digne, as you can see, is the only one I believe we've got on this list right now. Both of their underlying numbers do look pretty decent over the past few weeks. Villa as well are coming into a nice run of decent fixtures over the next 4 to 5 game weeks. However, these guys, again, just don't have those multiple avenues to points that I'm looking for. They don't have the defensive contributions that personally I would be looking for in terms of my defensive pickups. These guys that can, of course, just pick up DEFCON whenever we need them, which is a very repeatable action. Trying to predict when a Cash goal or a Digne goal is going to happen is extremely hard to do, and not something I would be looking to do with my own FPL side. For example, Matty Cash's goal against Manchester City, how many people would have realistically played him against Manchester City? Very few. So trying to predict when these things happen is, of course, going to be extremely difficult. In terms of defensive contribution beasts, then, we do have Senesi, we do have Anderson on this list, who is also apparently injured at the moment, so maybe monitor that one from Fulham as well. Bournemouth next 3 games are really nice, so maybe if you've not got Senesi, could be potentially worth taking a little bit of a look at him. Richards, like I said, another DEFCON guy. Konate, if you want those Liverpool fixtures and don't have the budget to potentially stretch yourself out, or want to leave a little bit of budget in the bank to maybe make some other moves as well. So maybe Konate could also be a decent one. Van Dijk was at 60% of his game so far this season. Konate, interestingly, at 50. There's only 2 points difference between the pair right now. I really like Michael Keane and Tarkowski as well for the defensive contribution players. Absolute beasts when it does come to this metric. Keane, of course, is their more kind of, threat piece set guy. They all always look for him rather than over Tarkowski as well. And is currently averaging more points per start than James Tarkowski as well. So if you are looking for a budget defender, I do think Michael Keane could be a real steal at 4.5. I do believe you go probably him, Anderson, or Richards if you are really in the market for a 4.5 million guy. I've also put obviously a few of the Sunderland defenders within this list as well. We can see Mukiele, who's also been pretty prolific at those defensive contributions at 4.2. Would I go for him? Probably not. I think Sunderland have got some pretty difficult games coming up across the board, so probably still wouldn't really invest unless I'm really looking to, downgrade Gabriel and spread my funds out a little bit more if I've got some free transfers backed up. Let's talk about Manchester City then. We can see Nico Riley's on this list, and of course Ruben Diaz as well. Ruben Diaz's minutes have been great. The problem is DEFCON's not really there. City, they do of course keep clean sheets, but they always feel like they could definitely concede one, and I never ever want to play pet roulette with any player outside of Erling Haaland, so probably wouldn't look at Ruben Diaz. Same goes with Nico O'Reilly. He's been very, very impressive for Manchester City so far this campaign. Some big double-digit hauls in there. However, heading into this winter and festive period, there is going to be some rotation. So again, probably wouldn't look to it. De Ligt as well. Some people are, of course, looking at him. He's hitting defensive contributions, has scored a goal so far this season. I don't know why it's not pulled through on this report, but he definitely has scored one in the last Manchester United game as well. He could be an interesting option. The problem I have with that is Manchester United defensive numbers haven't really improved this year. They're still one of the worst sides for expected goals conceded. And I think when you're picking the defenders, their bread and butter should be playing for at least a decent side. I don't see that with De Ligt, so that probably rules him out. Like I said, my personal favourite options right now heading into this game week going to be Virgil van Dijk. He's probably the number one best option. Number two, if you're sticking with the Arsenal defence, is going to be Saliba. Then you've probably got, your likes of your Munoz, your Richards, your Lacroix, if you want a kind of short-term punt over the next few weeks in terms of Palace. Outside of that, then I probably would say you're downgrading him to a Michael Keane, a Richards, one of these 4.5 million guys other than that. I hope this video was really helpful for you guys. Like I said, if you want some more advice from me, head over to the FPL Cartel, link in the description. If, of course, you did enjoy today's video, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing and all that good stuff. And the best of luck for game week 12.